When the doctor turned the newborn toward us, my heart simply stopped. The baby had dark skin. We didn't. And in that moment, I didn't hesitate for a second. My wife had cheated on me. I believed it so blindly and instantly that everything spiraled so fast afterward. None of us could stop it. And the worst part was, our relationship had been so perfect that the thought of something like this seemed impossible. But, as they say, even the straightest walls can crack where you least expect them to. But for you to understand what exactly collapsed, you first need to see what that life used to be. We met in the parking lot of Trader Joe's. Not romantic, not cinematic. We just bumped carts. She apologized. I smiled. We exchanged a couple of words. And 5 minutes later, I no longer remembered what I'd even come to buy. I only thought about her. Emily worked as a school counselor, always on the move, with a stack of papers, half-finished coffee, and that forever falling apart messy bun. I worked in an office in Portland and spent hours in traffic. But every evening I drove to see her, and all the traffic in the world suddenly felt insignificant. Our first real date wasn't perfect, but unforgettable. We went to a small downtown restaurant. Huge pasta portions, music louder than necessary, and a table that wobbled on one leg. But she laughed at it, and I laughed with her. A month later, we were already going to Costco together, arguing over which napkins to buy and who should push the heavy cart. 2 months later, I knew. I wanted to wake up next to her for the rest of my life. I proposed on a day when a rare heavy snowfall hit Oregon. I'd planted little clue arrows around our cul-de-sac. The first by her car, the second by that same restaurant, the third on my porch, where I'd set up our photos year by year. When she reached the door, I stood there in a sweater, soaked from the snow, and she said, yes, before I even opened the box. The wedding was in her parents' backyard. Her father grilled burger patties on a big Blackstone. My mom insisted everyone drink champagne from plastic cups, and her sister hung string lights as if it were a Hallmark Christmas movie set. Everyone said we were perfect for each other. And honestly, we were. We bought our first house a year later. A typical 2-story suburban home. White porch, lawn, the neighbor's overly loud dog, and that mailbox I kept promising to replace. We did everything families here do. Ran into Target for one candle and came out with a full trunk. Argued about which IKEA couch to get. Took Christmas photos by the fireplace. Made snow angels the one time a year it snowed. Drove to the lake on the 4th of July. Burned our fingers on the barbecue. Argued about who should mow the lawn, and both hated it. On Sundays I made pancakes. She made coffee in a giant mug. And we sat on the porch, watching neighbors walk their dogs, saying we had the quietest, nicest place on earth. And in the evenings we watched shows, planned trips, chose vacation spots, and laughed about little things that feel like they belong to another lifetime now. We lived like that for 15 years. 15. With no serious fights. No cold nights. No secrets. None of that tension you see in couples who've grown tired long ago. We were steady, real, homely. You know that warm, calm life people always try to hold on to? That was us. Ours. I truly believed we were the example. A wife you could trust. A husband you could rely on. A home where no one ever felt out of place. And if anyone had told me earlier that all of this could shatter in a single second, with a single turn of a doctor's hands, I would have laughed. Until the day he turned the newborn toward me. I often think the world doesn't break gradually. It breaks in one violent snap, without warning, without logic, hitting the places you believed were unbreakable. That day started calmly. Too calmly for the hell that was waiting ahead. We arrived at the hospital early in the morning. The usual suburban buzz. Someone wheeling his wife in a chair, someone sipping Starbucks, someone complaining about parking. Emily held my hand tightly but calmly. She'd always been like that, able to hold warmth even through pain. We joked, wondered who our son would look like, debated between 2 names, Jacob or Ethan. Bought tiny bear-patterned socks ahead of time. Waited the way people wait for the brightest moment of their lives. And the moment they rolled her into the delivery room, I didn't doubt for a second. We were about to become even happier. But happiness is fragile. It hangs on thin threads that can snap in one instant. When the doctor lifted the newborn and turned him toward us, I felt something tear inside my chest so sharply. It was as if someone struck me from within. The baby had dark skin. We didn't. The room fell silent. So thick and cold it felt like the air itself disappeared. Emily was the first to understand what I saw. Her face froze, her eyes widened. Not the look of a guilty woman, but of someone who's just been shown something she herself cannot explain. Michael, please, her voice cracked. I don't know, but inside me, a wave of shock was already spreading, drowning out everything else. Explain. Now. I didn't recognize my own voice. It was firm, brittle, cold. I'm just as shocked, she trembled. I don't understand how. The nurse stepped back. The doctor frowned and glanced at the monitor, as if that screen could possibly explain any of this. And everything before that moment, all the years, all the holidays, all our life, suddenly exploded into a fog of disbelief and helplessness. Emily. I stepped back as if afraid I might fall. Are you telling me you don't understand what's happening? She covered her face with her hands. I swear, I didn't do anything. Michael, please. She cried, not like someone trying to wriggle out of guilt, and that somehow made it even worse. A heavy, adult kind of anger washed over me. The kind that empties you out. The kind that leaves you nowhere to put your hands. I walked out into the hallway because the walls began to press in. Sat on a plastic chair where someone had stuck a smiling teddy bear sticker for no reason. I stared at one spot. Tried to breathe. Understood only one thing. What happened in that room is not something that happens to normal families. But it happened to mine. Emily came out a few minutes later. The baby in her arms. Tears on her cheeks. Her lips trembling. Michael, please. I didn't do anything. Please believe me. I don't understand what's happening. Her voice was soft, broken, as if someone was tearing it out from inside her. I looked at her, and the more lost she seemed, the more I fell apart inside. Because she was always the steady one. Always knew what to say. Always the anchor. And now she looked like someone who'd just had the ground ripped out from under her feet. We had lived 15 beautiful years. 15. With no storms, no secrets, no fractures. And now one day, one hospital room, one newborn child, who looked like neither of us, nor anyone in either of our families, stood between us, like a massive wall we had no idea how to climb. I looked at Emily, and for the first time in my life, I didn't know who was more broken, she or me. But one thing was certain. Whatever started today, neither of us would ever forget it. What happens after a shock is never like in the movies. There are no thoughtful pauses, no profound lines. Just disjointed motions, blank stares, and the struggle to breathe without collapsing. Emily and I sat in that small hospital room, with walls so pale it felt like they were painted that way, to make sure no one felt truly alive inside them. The baby lay in her arms. She stroked his tiny palm, whispered something to him. Not excuses. Not the words of a mother trying to hide the truth. No. She spoke as if trying to convince herself that he was her son, that he was here, that this was real. I watched them, and felt a pain so sharp. It was as if someone had pulled out my ribs, and left me staring at the hollowed space inside my own chest. Not because I didn't want a child. I did. We both did. But no one prepares you for the moment, when the birth of your child destroys your entire life. By the time we were discharged that evening, the street outside was glowing with warm porch lights. Our cul-de-sac looked exactly the same. Kids riding bikes. A neighbor kicking a trash bin shut. Someone grilling chicken on their patio. The world kept going. Ours didn't. The drive home was so quiet that even the GPS seemed too loud. Emily held the baby in the back seat, looking at him as if afraid he might slip away. Michael. Her voice shook. Please don't turn away from him. He didn't do anything wrong. I tightened my grip on the wheel. My knuckles went white. I'm not turning away from him. I just don't know how to look yet. It was the truth. A bitter, awkward, heavy truth. Emily closed her eyes, and tears rolled down her cheeks. She didn't sob. She cried quietly, the way people cry when they hurt for everyone at once. Home felt like walking into a past life, one that had ended in the delivery room. At the entrance, our anniversary photo. In the kitchen, our neighbor's handwritten, "Good luck with the baby red heart." On the fridge, a Trader Joe's shopping list for the week. In the living room, the crib I'd assembled 3 days before, standing there like a monument to a world that no longer existed. I didn't know where to look. Every object pressed down on me, like an extra weight on my chest. Emily gently laid the baby in the crib. Her hands trembled, as if she were setting down a piece of glass that could shatter from a breath. Do you want to hold him? Her voice was barely audible. I slowly shook my head. Not because I didn't want to, because I couldn't. Her face crumpled. She turned away so I wouldn't see. The first days at home felt like living inside someone else's family. Everything done correctly, yet everything feeling wrong. We cared for the baby together, changing diapers, warming bottles, laying him down to sleep, walking him around the neighborhood. And every time I saw Emily with him, I understood one thing. Her love was real. She wasn't acting, wasn't performing. She was a mother who didn't know why her son looked like neither of us, but still gave him everything she had. And I was a man whose 15 years of happiness had mixed with disbelief into one heavy, tangled mass. I didn't know how to untangle. A few days later, we tried to live as usual. We went to Target, bought wipes, lotion, diapers. Emily improvised little explanations to the cashier about why the baby was so big for a newborn. In the parking lot, an elderly woman glanced into the stroller. "Oh, what a handsome boy. Who does he take after?" Emily froze, as if someone had pressed a finger into an open wound. I answered for her. After her. She looked at me then, really looked, for the first time in days, as if seeing that I hadn't fully disappeared. But inside, everything was still burning. I was polite, but broken. On the fourth day, we tried a family breakfast. Pancakes, coffee, apple juice. Like always. But nothing was like always. I watched the baby lying in the carrier beside us, and felt a cold shadow moving somewhere deep inside. Not hatred, not anger, not fear. Something wordless. What you feel when you simply cannot believe. Life has shifted this violently under your feet. Emily tried talking, tried picking topics, tried smiling. It was exhausting. For her, because she didn't know how to live in this chaos. For me, because I didn't know how to believe her. But one thing was unmistakably clear. She wasn't lying. She was crushed by it herself. Neighbors began stopping by. They came with pies, gifts, tiny baby blankets. They looked at the baby, then at each other. I felt every one of their glances like a needle. "You're holding up pretty well," my neighbor Tom said, when we stepped onto the porch. "But everything okay?" I smiled. Hard. Stiff. "Everything's fine." He looked at me the way people look, at a ship slowly sinking in calm water. Every evening Emily tried to talk, to explain. Even though she had nothing to explain. She cried. She trembled. She begged me just to stay close. And I thrashed inside my own chest, like a bird trapped against a window. 15 years of perfect life were fighting in my mind, against the moment I'd seen in that delivery room. Everything pressed on me. Everything cracked. Everything pulled me toward a cliff's edge. And the worst part, we were both innocent in what was tearing us apart from within. This part of our life was not the end yet, but it was the moment. We realized our old marriage had died that day in the delivery room, and the new one, it didn't even know how to take its first steps. We tried to keep living, not because we were ready, but because we didn't know what else to do. American life doesn't give you time to pause. Bills don't wait. Neighbors don't understand why you stopped smiling. Work doesn't ask how your last few days have been. So we just lived. But lived started to mean something entirely different. We began taking evening walks. Not because we wanted to, but because the walls at home felt like they were closing in, leaving barely enough air between us to keep from suffocating. Sometimes we'd walk the same loop around our cul-de-sac for weeks. Past the Johnsons' perfectly trimmed lawn. Past the Lopez family, who always grilled something delicious in the evenings. Past the same mailbox I'd been promising to replace for over a year. Everything around us looked normal. Too normal. Painfully normal. As if the world was deliberately showing us everything we had lost inside ourselves. During our walks, Emily held the baby so close. You'd think she was afraid a strong wind might pull him away. I walked beside her, saying nothing, listening only to her breathing. Steady, quiet, but far too fast to claw back even a hint of life. We started doing the things we always did in good times. Our little family escapes. Not trips. We weren't ready for that. I mean the things real Americans love. Late-night Walmart runs. For things we didn't need. Friday dinners at Applebee's, where the waitress smiles wider than her mood allows. AMC movie nights, where we watched films we barely understood, but enjoyed sitting next to each other for 2 uninterrupted hours. These little things weren't happiness. They were survival. Especially for Emily. I could see her trying to hold everything together, as if life itself were a glass vase. And if she stood perfectly still, it might not crack. She started doing things. she never had time for before. Searching Pinterest for new recipes, replanting flowers in the garden, baking extravagant desserts she plated like graduation cakes, making Instagram breakfasts with berries, syrup, perfectly crisp bacon. Watching her, I knew. She wasn't trying to hide the truth. She was trying to hide the pain. I began doing strange things too. Things that would have seemed ridiculous before. I started buying everything they advertised during football games. A new grill, an expensive pool cleaning attachment. We don't have a pool. A smart lamp that changes color with your mood. Which was ironic, because my mood had only one shade, quiet chaos. I mowed the lawn obsessively. Every Saturday. Sometimes twice. I moved furniture around. Rearranged tools in the garage. Straightened picture frames. Not because I'm a perfectionist, but because when you lose control inside, you try to build it around you. On weekends, relatives came by, each wearing their own mask, each carrying their own version of truth. Her mother whispered, "Sweetheart, it'll get better. Just stay close to Emily." My mother, through clenched teeth, asked, "And what are you going to do about the baby?" After that, Emily quietly left the room, pretending to look for tissues. My father said nothing at all. He just sat on the couch, hands clasped, as if he was afraid his thoughts might tear the house apart. Sometimes, after sunset, I'd step out to the backyard and switch on the string lights we'd hung last year. They glowed a soft, warm yellow, as if trying to say, "You're still home. This is still your life." Emily joined me a little later. Sometimes she sat beside me, sometimes across the yard. We sat in silence, listening to the McCormicks arguing next door, to teenagers rolling skateboards down the street, to a dog barking somewhere far off. It was an awkward silence. It wasn't heavy. It was humbled, as if the house itself understood that we were holding on by the thinnest threads and didn't dare make an extra sound. And the more days passed, the clearer a terrifying truth became. We had stumbled into a life no one is ready to live, not even those who spent 15 perfect years, believing they were unbreakable. Emily kept holding the baby tightly, as if he was the only thing left in this world worth saving. And I, every time I looked at him, felt a pain I couldn't name. Not hatred, not anger, not fear, but that deep, silent feeling you get when you don't know how to be a father to a child who shattered your reality, yet did nothing wrong. The first weeks after the baby was born turned into a series of days that felt identical, except for how hard it became to breathe. Life didn't wait for us to pull ourselves together. Bills arrived on time. Neighbors waved like nothing had changed. Work sent emails marked urgent, and I could barely put a coherent sentence together. We lived like people trying to hold onto the edge of a cliff, not knowing if there was any ground beneath it. Relatives started visiting more than ever. Her mother would take the baby in her arms and cry. From tenderness, from fear, from confusion. She stroked his cheek as if trying to feel a connection. That simply didn't make sense. "Emily, sweetheart, you didn't do anything wrong," she kept repeating. "You're good. You're strong. You couldn't have." Those words held Emily up like scaffolding, keeping her from collapsing completely. My mother was different. She sat in the living room with a straight back and folded hands, as if she'd come not to visit, but to deliver a verdict. "Michael," she said stiffly, "you need to think about yourself. Your life has changed. You need to make decisions, not wait for them to be made for you." Emily quietly left the room. No slammed door. No crying. She just disappeared, as if the air had suddenly become too heavy to breathe. Friends brought gifts, tiny clothes, toys, books. They tried to look supportive, but their eyes betrayed everything. They all wanted to understand how something like this could happen, something decent families never speak about aloud. "How are you holding up? This must be incredibly hard. If you need anything, please tell us." The words sounded caring, but the looks hurt. We tried to fill life with normal things. Friday barbecues, trips to Costco, quick runs into Trader Joe's for things we didn't actually need, but somehow felt important to buy there anyway. We walked along the waterfront, sat in the park with hot chocolate, wandered through weekend fairs, but none of it was life. It was an attempt to resurrect a version of us that died in that delivery room. Emily tried 10 times harder than before. She made perfect breakfasts, eggs with herbs, avocado toast, berries in little white bowls. She baked apple pies, replanted flowers, rearranged furniture, folded baby clothes with such precision. It looked like she was stitching a new life for us, one careful seam at a time. But her eyes were red every morning. She hardly slept. And whenever she looked at me, I saw a plea she was too afraid to speak. Please tell me we're going to be okay. I tried to cope in my own strange ways. I mowed the lawn more often than necessary, polished the grill, organized tools in the garage by color, ordered things we'd never use. A camping set, a portable projector, a new water filter, a roof rack for the car that I didn't even know how to attach. Control was the only way I could breathe. Nights were louder, much louder. The baby cried. Emily always got up first, her hand steady, her voice soft, her heart breaking. But she held on anyway. I'd get up later. Help. Hold the bottle. But every time his dark eyes lingered on my face, I felt a pain I still can't put into words. Not anger, not resentment. That hollow feeling that comes when reality breaks you in half. Neighbors stopped by with pies and well wishes. They smiled too wide, looked at the baby too long, then shifted their gaze to me. Their smiles were gentle, their questions kind, but their eyes were sharp as blades. One day Tom said, "You're holding up pretty well, but everything okay?" I smiled, the way people smile when they haven't held anything together for a long time. Every evening Emily tried to talk. "Michael, please. I don't know what's happening. I'm still me. Don't leave me. Please say something." But there were no words, none that fit any of the emotions that spun inside me, like stones in a washing machine. 15 years of a perfect life were fighting inside me against one single moment. The moment I saw in that delivery room. Everything pressed on me. Everything cracked. Everything pushed me toward the edge. And the worst part, we were both innocent in what was destroying us from within. This wasn't the end yet, but it was the moment. We understood. Our old marriage died that day in the delivery room, and the new one, it didn't even know how to take its first steps. After that day, I began to notice more and more that we weren't living together. We were living beside each other, like two people standing on opposite sides of a pane of glass, seeing each other, hearing each other, but unable to touch. We shared a home, a kitchen, night feedings, phone calls with our parents, and visits from neighbors. But sharing a life was becoming harder with every passing day. Emily was holding on by sheer will. She woke up earlier than I did, cleaned the living room until it shone, made breakfast the way hosts on HGTV do, as if a camera crew might walk in any minute, to show America how a perfect home looks. I knew why she did it. Order on the outside was her last attempt to hold together what was breaking inside. Sometimes I walked into the kitchen and saw her sitting with a cup of coffee that had gone cold 2 hours ago, just sitting, staring out the window, quietly whispering, "Everything will be okay, everything will be okay." But each day, her voice grew softer. I tried to be close to her, but the harder I tried, the farther away I felt. We ate dinner together, but silence sat between us, like a third person, one who grew larger every night. I went to work, drove to the office, pretended to focus, but caught myself just staring at the monitor until the letters blurred. Coworkers asked, "You doing all right?" I smiled, just not sleeping much. That was half the truth. The other half, I wasn't living at all. Sometimes there were moments that almost brought us back to life. We'd go to the baby store, and Emily would pick out tiny onesies, touching them so gently, as if they were pages of a book. She was terrified to tear. We'd go to the Suburban park, where families grilled hot dogs, and kids chased soap bubbles in the grass. And for a minute, I felt like we could still belong to that world. But only for a minute. Then Emily's eyes would fall on the baby, mine on her, and everything came rushing back. We both loved him, but we both feared what his arrival had done to us. The hardest part began when people started asking questions we had no answers to. Our neighbor Joan brought over a pie and said something far too gentle to be harmless. "These things sometimes happen. What matters is staying together." I nodded, but inside something tightened. If even she spoke so carefully, that meant the street was already whispering. And in a small American suburb, whispers live longer than holidays. The tension inside the house turned almost physical. We'd sit on the couch in the evenings. Warm light, the TV humming in the background, but neither of us watching. We were just there. "Michael," Emily said softly, "are you still with me?" I wanted to say yes. Wanted it so badly. My chest ached, but the word didn't come. I only exhaled. "I don't know." She turned away, and I saw her shoulders tremble. Not from anger, from fear. One night, I woke to the sound of someone crying quietly. Emily was sitting on the floor by the crib, her knees pulled to her chest. The baby slept peacefully, as if no pain existed in the world. I sat down beside her. She didn't even notice. "I'm ruining everything, aren't I?" she whispered. "No." "Then what?" "We just got lost." She nodded and said a sentence I'll never forget. "If I could at least explain what happened, it would be easier for you to hate me. But like this, you hate the silence." That truth cut deeper than anything else. Days dragged on. Our life looked like life. We cooked meals, went shopping, attended doctor appointments, cleaned the house, planned errands. But it wasn't real anymore. I no longer felt like a husband. She no longer felt like a wife. We became two people who had slipped into the same story, but lost the script. And one day, I don't even remember which, I realized no love can survive the emptiness that had settled between us. We weren't enemies. We weren't guilty. We didn't want to hurt each other. But the truth was simple. Our marriage had died. We were just too afraid to say it out loud. I never thought truth could arrive quietly, without a flash, without dramatic gestures, without someone pounding on the door or raising their voice. Real truth comes like morning fog, unnoticed, but changing everything you see. And the day it came, I realized we had been living in that fog for a long time. It started with a simple letter, a plain white envelope, lying in the mailbox between a pizza flyer and the electric bill. No logo, no stamp, just my name. When I opened it, there was a thin sheet inside, almost transparent. I recognized the paper immediately, the kind we signed at the hospital. But this one was different. It listed the time of birth, the same one I had seen before. Only now there were two more times beside it, crossed out, and beneath them, a third, completely different. 3 birth times, 3 signatures, 2 of them clearly not from a doctor. And at the bottom, a handwritten line. Check the bracelet number. I felt the cold rise through my body. I went upstairs, where Emily was rocking the baby. She was pale as morning light. Her eyes carried the shadows of sleepless nights and constant fear. I handed her the paper. She read it for a long time, too long, as if the words reached out and held her by the shoulders. "Michael," she whispered, "this isn't our code." I looked at the bracelet we were given that day. The number, the one that was supposed to match. The tiny identifier on his ankle. It didn't match, not off by 1 digit. Completely different. And in that moment, everything became clear. Clear the way things do when you flip on the lights. After being in the dark too long. Not cheating. Not a secret affair. Not a betrayal. A mistake. A huge, irreversible mistake. The child who was supposed to be our son might be lying now in the arms of another family. Just as lost. Just as broken. And the one in our arms was simply placed there, like a stray note in the wrong melody. Emily covered her face with her hands, and for the first time she screamed. Not from pain, from release. Have you ever heard a person scream from truth? It isn't a sound. It's a fall. I sat across from her, my hands shaking. The baby asleep, unaware his life could have been entirely different. "Did we lose 15 years?" she asked. "No," I said. "We only lost that day. The day that destroyed everything." She lifted her eyes to me. Red. Exhausted. Alive. The body can endure anything, except truth that arrives too late. We drove to the hospital. No words on the way. The GPS spoke for us. The world around us kept moving, as if it didn't know. A family was collapsing that day. At the reception desk, the woman tried to smile. But when she saw the bracelet number, her expression changed. Not from fear, but recognition. She knew. Everyone knew. Everyone but us. The administrator spoke softly. Too softly. The way people speak in movies. When admitting to a mistake. That ends in lawsuits. We had a mix-up. When? The day of delivery. Why? We're investigating. How many families are affected? 2. I felt anger and relief collide inside me, like 2 trains on the same track. Emily held the baby tightly. Too tightly. As if loosening her grip would make everything disappear. So this means she couldn't finish. The administrator nodded. There is a possibility this is not your biological child. A possibility. A word that means nothing when it breaks a life in half. We walked out of the hospital. The wind was warm. The pines rustled, as if it were just another normal day. But for us, it was the day The last walls finally fell. Emily clutched the baby to her chest and said, "I'm not giving him up." And I understood. She wasn't talking about paperwork or blood. She was talking about love, the kind that grows, like the root of a tree, even when planted in the wrong soil. That night we sat in the kitchen, the same table, the same mugs, but everything was different. "Michael," she said quietly. "Yes." "What now?" I looked at her for a long time. At the woman who survived a hell she never deserved. "Now," I said, "we admit that we're no longer the people we used to be." She nodded and cried, and I cried too, for the first time through all of this. Not from loss, from truth. We didn't get our old marriage back. It died there, in that delivery room, when life mixed up two families. But we put a period, not on our love, but on our expectations. And sometimes, that is the ending. When you don't blame anyone, don't look for enemies, don't build walls. You just see the truth and understand that it came far too late. That was the last night we sat together as husband and wife. Everything after that belonged to a new life, one we'd have to learn no longer as two.